Of all the MacBooks Apple ever released, each one I've bought, sold and made videos about, this one remains my absolute favourite. This is a 17-inch unibody MacBook Pro. Apple have never made a laptop this big since. This is a 2010 model. They were the first MacBooks to come with Intel i5 and i7 series CPUs, and the one I have is a 2.5 to 3.1 GHz i5 model. The processors on these things unfortunately have just 2 cores. This doesn't render them weak machines all round though. The unibody era of MacBooks, that's 2008 to 2012, are fondly remembered for their upgradability. That's something newer MacBooks simply don't have. This 2010 17-inch came with 4GB of RAM, which was doubled to 8GB soon after purchase. I'll be putting a 250GB SSD in the place of the spinning hard drive to improve boot speeds and how fast and responsive the OS is, as SSDs are up to 12 times faster than HDDs. Another thing that could be changed after purchase on these were the displays. This model is an upgraded anti-glare display variant with a resolution of 1920 by 1200. The anti-glare options were more expensive at the time when bought from Apple, but now gloss and matte screens are available for a reasonable price used. The 2010 contains 2 SATA 2 connections inside, with one taken up by the DVD drive, which can be replaced with an extra hard drive, and the other housing the main boot drive. SATA 2 is only half the speed of SATA 3, which is what is used in most computers with 2.5-inch drives these days. This MacBook has an NVIDIA GT330M with 512MB of dedicated GDDR3 video memory. So why do I like this machine so much, and what's it like to use regularly? Well, to begin with, the display is super captivating. Bear in mind 1920 by 1200 is a higher resolution than 1080p monitors. On a laptop-sized screen, this comes across as absolutely usable for 2024. Even when you look closely, you can't very easily discern individual pixels from one another on this display. The anti-glare finish is just a nice thing to have. It's a pity modern MacBooks don't have this actually. Going outside is when you really start to notice it, but this shot gives you a good example situation too. 17 inches gives you space to multitask properly with multiple pages open on the desktop. It's like having a PC monitor almost. The speed of the 2010 17-inch is far from modern, unfortunately. 2 cores will never lead to a great experience on this side of the 2020s, and you really get a feeling of the sluggishness when doing anything more than watching YouTube videos, running Microsoft Office Suite apps, and browsing the web and your own files. Thankfully, that's enough for me. I intend to use this for watching films, keeping backups of all my YouTube files on, and writing and reading all my scripts off it. In fact, that's what I'm doing right this second. Speaking of writing, the typing experience on this thing is absolutely brilliant. It's hard to prove my findings, but this keyboard very much feels like it has the most travel and highest keys on any MacBook ever. There's a little bit of space between each key which isn't present on the latest MacBooks too. I really like that, and it feels like a keyboard I could get used to using every day. The backlight underneath can be adjusted with physical keys F5 and F6, which is a feature Apple took off their laptops more recently in case you weren't aware. Last thing about the keyboard, mine has a US layout. You can tell this from the flatter enter key as well as the $sign where a pound sign would usually be in the UK. So yeah, mega screen, mega keyboard, but there are some other features on this thing that draw it apart from the other laptops out there. My god, look at this port selection. MagSafe 1, Ethernet, FireWire 800, mini DisplayPort, USB, 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 optical and digital 3.5mm input and output, ExpressCard 34, and this charming little battery charge indicator so you can see how much battery life you have left and whether or not it's charging. There's a Kensington lock slot and the optical disk drive on the right hand side too. On the front you'll find a sensor for the remotes people used to use with these things, as well as the little power light. If your MacBook is powered on with the lid closed, you'll see this little guy breathing. Sorry, hold on, ExpressCard? Yeah, ExpressCard is sort of like having a PCIe slot on the outside of your computer. It's an interface faster than USB 2, which is what these things are equipped with, and it's fascinating actually. You can put different ports in the slot, add USB 3 or Thunderbolt, and even add an antenna for things like local TV or faster Wi-Fi. ExpressCard 34 is a relatively small variant of the port, but still an interesting one which we've only ever seen on 17-inch MacBooks. Right, it's all very well praising the 2010, but Apple's track record with 17-inch laptops and reliability took a huge dent during the unibody period. A small but not insignificant number of 2009 17s ended up developing power problems in one of the logic board's capacitors, which led to a lot of them refusing to turn on at all. The 2010 is not without faults, with the graphics chips sometimes breaking, as well as the capacitors on the logic board sometimes failing, leading to kernel panics. Both of those problems have been more common on the 15 inches though. The 2011 17-inch MacBook Pro is where things get really sketchy. Thanks to poor thermal performance and quality control on the GPUs, all 15 and 17-inch 2011s are bound to fail at some point in the graphics department. Blank screens, glitches and artifacting, as well as refusing to start up, are all symptoms. Some users disable the graphics cards on these machines to avoid the problems, since there's an iGPU on board with the Intel CPU. This doesn't really get the job done though. The 17-inch lineup are meant to wield some sort of power, which the Intel HD 3000 certainly doesn't classify as. So yeah, I'd like to think I have the best of the bunch here, but they're anything from a reliable bunch. These unibody laptops have great repairability though. Here you can see me painstakingly removing the logic board in order to repaste the CPU and GPU. As I suspected, the paste had dried up and taken a toll on thermal performance under load. I just put some paste I had left over from my 2010 Mac Pro on the little parts. Another upgrade I went for was changing that slow HDD for an SSD. Thankfully I had one spare from my 2010 Mac Pro again. I guess it's like the brother of this machine, considering they came from the same year. The 250GB SATA SSD was just put in the place of the hard drive. I copied the hard drive's data over with Carbon Copy Cloner, which is a really useful piece of macOS software. One problem that comes with buying older MacBooks like this is their lack of native software support. macOS High Sierra, which released in 2017 and received minor updates until 2020, was the last update the 2010 17-inch got from Apple. But with the right patch tool, big thanks to DOSDude1, installing Catalina, which only lost support at the end of 2022, was incredibly easy. Google Catalina Patcher and DOSDude software will be the first result if you like to do this with your own unsupported Mac. Big Sur through Sonoma would theoretically be possible on this 2010 using the OpenCore Legacy Patcher, but I don't think such an update is wise considering the age of the laptop's parts, and I don't want to make the small chance of failure bigger. So yeah, I picked up this 2010 17-inch for just over £100 UK from eBay the other day. It was a catch. The screen is in perfect condition, and the top of the case is really good too. The bottom has been what looks like painted silver in order to cover some scratches, which is not a great look. But other than that, these machines are getting pretty rare. I wouldn't pay anything more than $250 for one, maybe 150 UK pounds, but honestly, they're getting rarer, so prices are going up more than anything else these days. Right, I could keep talking about these for hours and hours, but I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and consider subscribing if you enjoy this sort of old Mac content. We now have a What's on Your Screen Discord server as well, where you can talk about old and new Macs or whatever computers you're running. Links in the description down below. Alright, cheers, nice one mate, take care mate. Alright, see you in a bit mate, yeah, take care, bye, see you next week, bye.